Hey friends, I had a really interesting and kind of weird thought arise this morning. And it's related to this entire post as a whole, and kind of where I am with it, but it actually it actually speaks to something. As I began to reflect on it, it speaks to something much larger and I think universal. I'm going to try and describe it as concisely as I can, but it essentially amounts to, in the process of doing inner work, in the process of developing and building a meditation practice and a contemplative spiritual practice, some investigation of philosophy or whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be philosophy, but some level of understanding our experience, creating objectivity about our life experience, which really is kind of, at least as I understand it, it's kind of the heart of spiritual practice, is gaining the ability to not be fused with our conditioning or with our karma, but actually gaining a measure of remove. And meditation is key in this, because meditation is the process that takes us from identity with all of our conditioning. So it's like strapped to our face, right? We don't even know it's there. We simply exist as though our identity is our conditioning, our background, our karma, if there's such a thing as past life karma, which I firmly believe there is. That's all strapped to our face, so that we don't even know that it's there. It's just it's just who we are. Bam. And then we start meditating and we start saying, well, I can see this. I can observe all of this. And if that's the case, simply by logical deduction, I must not be it, because I can see it. That means there's something over here seeing something over there. So my conditioning, my karma, my programming is not me, because I can remove the me from it. I can, in fact, sometimes I'm automatically acting out these patterns, but then I can step back and say, hey, look at that. I acted out a pattern. I? What do you mean I acted out a pattern? Who? I? I'm not the pattern? Oh, right? And that's the kind of like early experience of a lot of people who get into meditation or spiritual work, is you start to realize, oh my Lord, I thought this was just who I am. And it turns out that's not true at all. I'm something completely different from all of this, from every single aspect of the world that I have called my identity. So that's what I call objectifying our experience. Objectification of our experience, and objectification ultimately of everything, of our identity, of every aspect of our experience. We learn to understand, we learn to see and feel, I am not that. There's the I that is the witness, the consciousness of all of this is not it. It's the in the world, but not of it. The consciousness is in the world, clearly, because look around, I'm in the world, but I am not of the world, because literally no aspect, no dimension, however subtle or gross, no circumstance or thought or situation or relationship or anything in the world, anything manifest, is me. So I'm not of the world. Consciousness is not of the world, it's in the world. That's the kind of like, that's an experience that I think grows over time, and in many ways it continues to grow, probably indefinitely, or at least until there's some sort of complete identity shift where we are just no longer identified with our worldly identity anymore. And to a great extent, that's an incredibly healthy and liberating process. I mean, that as I define it, that literally is liberation. That is the experience of gradually knowing I am not ensnared by my circumstances. I'm not in even the parts of me that I think are me, even the parts of me that have been this way as long as I can remember, are not really my identity. And that means that they don't define me. That means that I have a kind of boundless, infinite freedom beyond all of that I actually can step into anytime I want. Meditating more makes it easier to step into that, because as I meditate more, I actually assume a position of deeper and deeper repose in the identity that's in the world but not of it, and I take successive or sequential steps away from all the clutter, all the programming, all the patterns, all the karma, all the history. There's another aspect, though, which is that this process can kind of almost become kind of twisted, and we can pinpoint particular aspects of our identity, of our manifest identity, not our ultimate identity, but our finite identity, and go, I don't like that. I don't like that that's me. I don't like looking in the mirror and seeing that. So I'm going to meditate it away. Meditate it away. I'm nothing. I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that. We take these unpleasant aspects of ourselves and sort of like, and we like hyper apply in a kind of intellectual way, psychological way. We apply the spiritual process of objectification, but it's with an agenda. It's with an agenda to kind of not look at the shit we don't want to look at in ourselves, while kind of tolerating the aspects of our manifest identity that we don't have any trouble accepting. The parts of us that flatter us. We kind of get to keep those and banish the dark stuff. And this is the kind of ultimate. In some ways, it's I think one of the ultimate spiritual challenges. And Ken Wilbur, one of my favorite philosophers, goes into great length about how, in this day and age, with spiritual practice, one of the most important things we can be doing is what he calls shadow work. And shadow work is precisely the opposite of what I just said. It's not banishing the dark stuff that we don't want to see and sort of like consuming and indulging or getting addicted to the bright stuff that we want to see. It's taking that gaze and looking really clearly at the shadow stuff, really having the courage to look right at that dark stuff. Because yes, ultimately, our ultimate identity is beyond all of it, and it is beyond our shadow. But the fact is, we can't play favorites with our spiritual process, or else we're going to make a mess. It won't genuinely be spiritual work. It'll be a psychological trick using kind of co-opting a spiritual mechanism and turning it into a psychological repression tool to just block out shadow material. And so Ken Wilbur is very articulate about why it's so important to do this work, and then really looking at how some tools to actually do that. But I call that process of banishing the shadow exteriorizing versus objectifying, whereas objectifying actually is again, these are my terms. I have no idea whether this is universally how these terms are used, but I think of the process of peeling our conditioning off of our identity and getting objectivity. I call that objectification. Whereas the sort of like selective, I don't like that. Meditate it away. That's I call that exteriorizing, because now we're taking something that feels interior to us, and we're going off, pushing it off or away. But again, with an agenda and with the very explicit purpose of not facing our shadow, not receiving the dark implications of some of who we may be, of some of what we may do, how some of how we may be in the world. Again, none of this is to say that any of us are monsters, hopefully, but it is to say everybody's got a shadow, unless you're fully enlightened. And I've even seen some enlightened people who seem like they have a little bit of a shadow. So I don't know that shadow work is ever really done. As long as we're in the world, I feel like shadow work is it's going to be a key feature of remaining healthy, of remaining in a truly evolving state. So, but objectifying versus exteriorizing, big difference. So yeah, I'll come back to this more. It came out of a very kind of a interesting emotional experience within me. So it's potent right now for me to recognize this. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.